Joining me now is a Republican who Democrats have in their crosshairs, Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Congresswoman Boebert, you were singled out by the head of the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee as being next. Your response tonight?
I have been on their list since the day I announced. This certainly isn't a surprise to me. It's kind of a game of whack-a-mole at this point. So you kind of knock one down and three more pop up. But I'm encouraged because I know that the DCCC is terrified of what this freshman class is doing, where the Republican Party is going, and the momentum that is still behind us in 74 million Americans. And I am proud to be a part of this. I am honored to be the first woman to represent the people of Colorado's 3rd District, the first mom that has been sent to Washington, D.C. to be their voice. And so the DCCC can throw whatever they want at me. It's not going to stick. I'll keep whacking down the moles. And you're exactly right. We can't just keep sacrificing Republicans to the DCCC and to the Democrat Party. They will look after their next head to scalp. But this isn't
about, I just want to make this very clear to everyone watching now. We have to translate Washington to the rest of the country every night. With all due respect, it's not about you. It's not about Congresswoman Green. It's not about any one of you. This is about trying to take out anyone ever connected to Donald Trump, because they don't want to have to spend that much money again to meet someone like him in 2024. That means take out anyone connected with him. They said it's a third of the Republican Party or a third of the country still supports his ideas. It's about the ideas, Congresswoman. That's what they want to brand as racist or white supremacist, even though they were quite popular among various minority groups.
Laura, you are absolutely right. This is a movement that the Democrats can't seem to stop. They have spent millions of dollars trying to do that. And in all of this, they only expose their hypocrisy and show that they're never going to hold one another accountable. They're never going to stand on their own and be accountable for their own decisions. Really, the Democrat Party is a party of cancel culture. That's a pillar of the Democrat Party. When you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accusing Senator Cruz of nearly murdering her, or comparing Congressman Chip Roy's actions to a sexual abuser, this is ridiculous, and someone at some time needs to hold them accountable. And maybe it's the freshman class of the GOP.
The media love to trot out former congressmen, who don't have to actually answer to constituents anymore, like the never-Trumper Charlie Dent. And he thinks he has a way of saving the GOP. Watch.
The party needs to make a clean break from Trump, and I would argue a clean break from Trumpism, with all of its ugly populism, isolationism, protectionism. We need to empower Adam Kinzinger and those who want a new direction for the party that is much more socially tolerant, constructively engaged on the international and domestic stage.
Oh, my God, my hair hurts. Congresswoman, is this what the party needs?
Republicans, that's not the fight that I was sent here to be a part of. And so my agenda is taking back the House in 2022 and representing the people of Colorado. But I don't see the Republican Party going away from this America First agenda. Laura, that's what motivated me to get to Washington, D.C. I have 4 children. I know that conservative values are what leads them to a free and prosperous life. They are terrified of me and people like me. I grew up in a Democrat home, dependent on Democrat policies, and those policies failed me. They led me to stand in line for government cheese. Well, because the American dream is still available, now I'm in Washington, D.C., fighting to make sure no one else ever has to do that.
Well, they're afraid of you. You're optimistic, you're young, you're new, and they want to scare you. But it sounds like they're not doing a very good job of it. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Great.
You hear about that big study claiming big tech really doesn't favor liberals? It was funded by a big tech liberal. Bet you won't find out that fact in any of the mainstream reports. But the guy behind it is billionaire Craig Newmark. He also donated millions to fight fake news and a ton to Biden's campaign as well. He also founded Craigslist, the online bulletin board where I sell my discarded swimwear. But last night, Tucker revealed the study was in fact no study at all.
Can we get some numbers on that, NYU? Well, no, actually we can't. In the words of the, quote, study, pinning down precise proportions on censorship is impossible because Twitter doesn't release sufficient data. Are you following the reasoning here? Their conclusion, Twitter is not biased, and we can be certain it's not biased because Twitter refuses to release data on who it bans.
In other words, a fake study for a guy who claims he doesn't like fake news. It was designed for the media so they wouldn't have to do their jobs and investigate the actual claims. But the, quote, research is about as researchy as turning on the lights to your living room to assess the existence of whales. Yep, no whales there. Really, having a big tech lib fund a study on whether big tech is biased, that's like me funding a study on how great I am. Or a study saying Jesse has the best hair in cable news, and it's funded by the Jesse Waters Institute for Follicular Studies. Or how about one concluding that Jasper is indeed America's dog, and that's funded by the Dana Perino University of Dog Selfies? And did you know that Juan Williams is right on everything? That research was funded by Juan Williams. So before you see a study that says there's no massive crime wave, I'd check first to see if it was funded by criminals, or worse, CNN. Fact is, the great thing about being a rich lib, you can build a case for anything and the media will back you up 100%. It's how they lie to you and keep you in the dark. But of course, that's all BS, according to a new study by the people who lie to you and keep you in the dark. You know, Dagan, I didn't know you were on the show today, so I didn't come up with a study for you. So if you were commissioning a study on yourself, what would the ideal conclusion be?
That I speak the proper way, and dropping your G's is the way that everybody should pronounce words. That I'm speaking the King's and the Queen's English over here. I don't know what y'all are speaking.
Are you surprised by this finding?
Not at all, because you're actually describing what I'll call the left wingnut armada. You've got the tech industry, and with the tech monopolies, they're all powerful and unchecked, along with the media, along with academia, and then the government. And they feel they don't have opinions, mind you. They're right, they're correct, they're just, and they're moral. There is only one legitimate point of view, and it is theirs. And if you don't fall in line with them, if you don't agree with them, you're wrong. And now they're so emboldened and aligned with one another, they will also destroy you. You see that with technology, just with the shutting down of Parler. But we've been here before, and ultimately people turn against the outrage, the pushback on censorship and cancellation. You saw it with the Red Scare, the House Un-American Activities Committee, and McCarthyism. But the scary thing is, even if righteousness wins out, there's a lot of carnage before that happens, with lives and livelihoods destroyed. Worst case scenario is that the Dems, this kind of collective joining in, they win out, and Democrats are in power, and anybody who has a differing opinion or a different voice, you're destroyed, and so is our republic.
Mm-hmm. You know, Juan, studies like this, or when the media covers studies like this, isn't it their responsibility to say who paid for it? When I worked in health journalism, there was always a little note at the end of the study. This study on orange juice reducing cholesterol was funded by the Orange Juice Board. It was always kind of, they had to do it.
I don't think it was hidden, Greg, but I must say I'm struck by what you said in the terms that, usually you and I disagree, and I think this may be an occasion where we meet at the mountaintop, but just that we come up different sides of the mountain. Because from my side of the mountain, I think that big tech, with its ability to tell us how to think, what to buy, how to vote, I think that is too big, and they need to be regulated, in some cases maybe even broken up, but they certainly need some kind of interface with the public so that public understands what's going on and why they do what they do and when they do it. They're too powerful. But from my side of the mountain, I just wanted to say I don't want conservative thought limited. I don't think it is limited. When I look at these platforms, I see Ben Shapiro, I see Dan Bongino. They got the leading sites out there. Many of them are conservative sites that are the top sites on social media. So I don't see that there's any bias against the conservatives. But I think that when you start talking about things like killing politicians, when you start plotting violent, seditious acts against the Capitol of the United States, when you embrace conspiracy theories, when that kind of trash is spread on these sites, I then think people have a legitimate right to say, this is damaging to us as a country, to our society, to our ability to have honest discourse. And I think that's what's going on. I think that's why you see today in the Congress, you have Republicans like Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, saying that kind of thinking is cancerous and dangerous to not only to the Republican Party, but to us as an American people. And that's what's going on here. I don't care who paid for the study. I just think that we need to come together and say, you know, this kind of internet sensation that's distorting our public discourse is damaging.
But, Jesse, you know the answer to this is that it depends on who you are, because this isn't applied to celebrities on Twitter who say burn it all down, or people making threats to Trump or to Trump supporters or any kind of ominous warnings to anybody that is not a leftist. That stuff seems to just fly right by. You can tweet support of Farrakhan. That's okay.
Yeah, Greg, permission to make a sports analogy?
Permission granted.
Okay, so you're watching a football game, and on every single play, the refs flag a penalty on your team. They never throw flags at the other team, and you get blown out. And at the end of the game, the announcers come on the air and they say, wasn't that a very well-called game? And then you find out the announcers are on the payroll of the other team. That's how rigged this is. I can't name one liberal who's been flagged or censored on social media. I mean, Juan named Bongino and Shapiro. They've been flagged and censored. I mean, you're telling me the party of the left doesn't lie or push fake news? The Covingtons, the Collusions, the Smolletts, the Fine People hoaxes, the mailbox hoaxes, the hands up don't shooters, the people who said that the Arctic ice caps were going to melt 20 years ago. These people, you're going to give one political party a monopoly on the truth? Well, in that case, 150 years ago, the Democratic Party's Truth Commission would have said slavery's great, and they would have called the abolitionists people pushing disinformation. See what I did there? What this is really about is the legacy media losing their share in the marketplace. Everybody knows they lie, and people on the right, social media, Fox News, and podcasts, they're starting to gain traction. So instead of competing with them, they're conspiring with the state, the Democratic Party, and Silicon Valley to slap a danger label on conservative influencers and propping up czars and commissions to shut them down because they can't compete with them.
I think I learned that it's good we didn't have the internet back during the Civil War, Dana. Final thoughts to you. What do you
First
think?
of all, I never had a Ken doll. I don't even think I ever had a Barbie because my parents wouldn't buy me one, and they didn't believe in like the whole Barbie scene. So I didn't get mono from kissing.
Is that
a
all you've
Ken
been thinking
doll.
about in this block? So you've been thinking about that intro in the entire block?
No. Well, I mean, it did take me by surprise, but I loved it. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. In addition to the censorship issue, there's this whole thing of being compliant with terms of service. Now, we could all say, sure, we should all, if the terms of service, if you would agree to it, you should be responsible for it. But that isn't applied evenly from liberals to conservatives. I'll give you an example. Think of Jimmy Kimmel. Their show put up a fake video of Vice President Mike Pence putting empty boxes of PPE out. Now, that's clearly against terms of service. You can't manipulate videos. And it took a massive amount of outrage to get Twitter to flag it, take it down. Contrast that with just take your pick. There was one time when Donald Trump Jr. put up a video of Biden that was got out of context. It made him look like he was stumbling over his words, but actually it wasn't that. It wasn't manipulated, but it didn't have full context. It was immediately flagged. So if things were applied evenly, I think people would have a little bit more confidence.
I think you're absolutely right. And congratulations on day 3 of the turtlenecks. All right,
2 more to go.
coming up.
Former Senator John Kerry is your new climate czar. Joe Biden hired him the other day. A lot of czars all of a sudden, so we want to keep them separate. The climate czar is very different from a reality czar, which apparently we're also getting. The climate czar is not worried about reality, or science for that matter, any of that. The climate czar fights climate change. And if facts or common sense get in the way of that, the climate czar will fight those too. It's the perfect role for John Kerry. John Kerry has devoted his entire life to taking on global warming by contributing as much to global warming as he possibly can. Over the past year, to name just one among many examples, John Kerry's private jet, yes, he has one, has spent at least 20 hours in the air, emitting in the process more than 100 metric tons of carbon emissions, much more than you will emit in a lifetime since you don't have a private jet. John Kerry is the kind of leader who leads by negative examples. Well, in 2019, the world finally recognized John Kerry's sacrifice, his enduring commitment to doing precisely what he wants, while preventing you from doing the same. John Kerry was given in recognition of this something called the Arctic Circle Award. That award recognizes his efforts to, quote, tackle environmental matters. Naturally, John Kerry flew all the way to Iceland, that's 3,000 miles away, on his private jet to accept this honor. In his acceptance speech, John Kerry made it very clear that people like John Kerry make him very angry. In order to fight climate change, John Kerry said, we need to do exactly the opposite of what John Kerry himself is doing at the moment.
People are dying around the world because of climate change. I see it in my country. Floods in mid part of our country that wiped out farms, fires even now in California, mudslides that swallowed up whole homes and people. I get angry when I look at what public responsibility is supposed to be and I don't see people doing it.
There are mudslides and floods and fires, therefore I must have more power, and if you don't give it to me, I will be angry. And to prove that point, John Kerry will personally cause as many mudslides and floods and fires as it takes to wake you up to this problem. That's the cross he's willing to bear. Any questions? Well, at the time, no one had any questions. Actually, they never do. No one in the American media asks questions or thought that speech was weird in any way. But back in 2019, one journalist in Iceland, not yet brainwashed, did have a question. He asked, why did John Kerry fly all the way to Iceland on a private plane? Isn't that a little hypocritical? Now, to our knowledge, no one covered John Kerry's response at the time. It was completely buried. We have it now. You're going to want to see it. This is John Kerry's response.
It's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I believe the time